about finding yourself, discovering your interests, and figuring out where you belong. But for some of us, it's survival. It's a social jungle where confidence is currency. Awkwardness is a curse, and standing out in the wrong way is a one-way ticket to being everyone's target. I was one of those kids, the quiet type, not shy, exactly, but reserved, cautious, always thinking 3 steps ahead, but rarely saying anything out loud. My name didn't echo through the hallways. No one saved me a spot at lunch, and I wasn't invited to the after-school hangouts or birthday parties where kids played video games and drank soda like it was nectar of the gods. But there was one place where I did shine: math. For whatever reason, the language of numbers just clicked for me. When other kids groaned at fractions and word problems, I felt calm. Math made sense. It was logical, predictable, orderly. It didn't judge. It didn't whisper behind your back. It didn't care what shoes you wore or whether you still packed a lunch from home. Numbers were pure, so yeah, I was good at it. Really good. And maybe that's why it stung so much. When someone tried to take it from me, it all started in 7th grade. I had just transferred into a new homeroom, and thanks to alphabetical seating, I found myself next to Brad. Now, if you've ever been to middle school, you already know Brad. Not this Brad specifically, but a Brad. He was tall for his age, with perfect posture, a confident grin that bordered on cocky, and a pair of sneakers that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He was the kind of kid who had 5 teachers and got away with talking during class because, well, he's an athlete. One of those kids who could fail a test and still somehow end up celebrated because he ran fast and threw things far. Knew better than to get involved. I kept my head down, focused on my notes, and hoped that if I was quiet enough, I'd just disappear into the background. But it wasn't long before I realized Brad had other plans. The first time it happened, I wasn't sure. We were taking a quiz. Nothing major, just a 10-question multiple choice on algebraic expressions. I was focused, scribbling down answers when I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A slight movement. A tilt of Brad's head. Pencil moving a beat behind mine. I brushed it off. Maybe it was a coincidence. But it happened again the next week. And again after that, every quiz, every test, Brad would lean just a little too far. His eyes would flicker toward my desk just a little too often, and I knew he was copying, word for word, answer for answer. At first I didn't say anything. What could I do? I wasn't going to rat him out. That would have made me a snitch, and I had zero interest in painting a bigger target on my already awkward back. But it festered. The injustice of it. I studied. I practiced. I earned my grades. Brad, he just coasted, rode the wave of my effort like it was his own, grinning like he'd figured out some genius shortcut. It made my blood boil. And then came the quiz that changed everything. It was a Thursday, remembered because we had sloppy joes for lunch, and the cafeteria smelled like regret. We'd just come back from PE, sweaty and tired, and the math teacher, Mrs. Jacobs, announced a pop quiz with all the enthusiasm of someone declaring a fire drill. 10 questions. Show your work. No calculators. As she passed out the papers, I glanced sideways, and there he was, Brad, already leaning, already scouting, already preparing to steal. But that day, I had enough. I wasn't going to take it anymore. At first, I didn't even have a plan. I just felt this cold clarity settle over me, like I knew what I had to do, and I didn't even question it. I picked up my pencil, took a deep breath, and got to work. Only, I didn't write the right answers. I solved each question in my head carefully, meticulously, the way I always did, but instead of putting down the correct solutions, I jotted down decoys. Wrong answers. Not absurdly wrong, nothing that would raise suspicion, just subtle errors. A sign flipped here, a decimal misplaced there, enough to sabotage, not enough to alarm. And Brad, he copied every single one. Like a human photocopier, his pencil shadowed mine. I could feel his eyes burning into my paper. Every time I marked a number, he followed. Every time I hesitated, he hesitated. It was almost funny. If I wasn't so angry, I might have laughed. As the clock ticked down, I prepared the final phase of my plan. I reached for my backpack, capped my pen, shifted in my seat as if I were about to stand up, made a big show of stretching and pushing my chair back. Brad saw it, and like a rat racing toward cheese, he jumped up and strutted to the front of the room to hand in his paper. The second he turned his back, I erased everything. One by one, I replaced the fakes with the real answers, every equation, every fraction, every square root. My hands moved fast, my heart beat faster. 30 seconds later, my paper was perfect. I turned it in, returned to my seat, and watched Brad sink back into his chair with a satisfied smirk. I said nothing, but inside, I was on fire. The next day, Mrs. Jacobs handed back the quizzes. I already knew my score. What I wanted was to see his. I didn't even look at my own paper as she handed it to me, but when Brad got his, I watched. His eyes scanned the page. His confident grin wavered. His brows furrowed. Then he looked at me. 60%? He muttered, like he couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, I had a 90%. He stared at me like I'd just performed witchcraft. How? He whispered. I shrugged, leaned back casually, and delivered the most satisfying line I've ever spoken in my life. You should keep your eyes on your own paper. That was it. No dramatic confrontation, no yelling, no accusations, just silence. And a face full of confusion. Brad never copied off me again. Not once. Looking back now. Over a decade later, I realized something. Middle school taught me a lot. Not just about math, but about people, about fairness, about how sometimes the smallest acts of resistance can echo for years. How even the quietest kid can fight back, not with fists, not with shouting, but with strategy. Brad probably doesn't remember that quiz. He might have chalked it up to a bad day. Maybe he thinks the questions were worded weird or that he just got unlucky. But me, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the look on his face. The quiet justice of it all. That moment when the underdog didn't just bark back. He bit. Quietly, precisely, and walked away with a grin. And maybe that's the real lesson here. When you're someone who's constantly underestimated, someone who gets looked past, talked over, or treated like a free ride, you learn that justice doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's surgical. Sometimes it's just a sharpened pencil and a plan. So to everyone out there who's ever been used, it's overlooked, or taken advantage of, you're not powerless. You're not weak, and with the right timing. Unstoppable, call to action naturally embedded. If you've ever had to outsmart someone who tried to walk all over you, you already know how satisfying it is when the tables turn and they always get the last laugh.